Shift with Mike and Joe. We're going to stop saying which episode it is because we get it wrong every single time. Although I'm pretty sure this is episode 16.
Probably.
But yeah, welcome to The Shift with Mike and Joe. We got Dale Walls here.
How you doing?
Thanks for coming in, Dale.
Yeah, man.
Dale Walls.
It's rock.
Yeah.
Dale Walls.
We've already started talking about all kinds of really interesting stuff that we did not capture on film. So, Mike, can you say everything
Dale
word for
Walls.
word that you said before?
I'm just going to keep saying Dale Walls over and over again. It's a fun name.
Yeah, man. So Dale, little backstory for viewers. You and I did go to high school together, but we didn't know each other in high school. You were a couple years ahead of me. And then you reached out to me, maybe 3 weeks ago or something like that? Maybe 3 weeks, a month ago, something
Whatever.
like that.
I don't even remember what I had for breakfast.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yes.
But it was really cool, man. I thought it was awesome. Like, you just hit me up and just to make that connection, and kind of gave me a lot of information that day on the phone about what you do and your entrepreneurship journey and some backstory and like what you're doing these days. And to be honest, I think I retained probably about 15% of it. So yeah, man, can you like introduce yourself and let us know like a little bit about yourself, what you do, maybe some backstory?
Yeah, man. I mean, here, shore talk, right? I'm born on the shore. Graduated Queen Anne's, 98. And really just backstory wise, and I kind of started like you guys, like Dale Walls. Look, man, I don't think I'm just a struggling dude, just like anyone else, right? It's kind of like just I look at it, and I know I've had some different successes, and I know I do honor and take humbly. Some people look up to me for various things, whether it's business. I've been married for 25 years, right? And I totally appreciate that. I'm not on any pedestal, man. I stumble and fall and screw up like everyone else, and I know, where I come from. Like when I grew up around here, like, classic stuff. And, no one beat me or I had some crazy hardship coming up, but come from a broken home, grew up in Centerville. My mom and I relocated to my grandmother's house. I lived in her attic. My mom and I shared a bed for years, right?
I got you.
Just didn't really have a father figure in my life. And so with that, I really had that like stereotypical, boyhood that really didn't have a man kind of like,
right.
towing a line, giving me the right guardrails to kind of keep me in check, or even, be that example for me. My father at the time was a every other weekend dad. Other than that, I'm running the streets of Centerville Heights with, what we call the Heights boys, and having a blast, number one. But by the time I got to high school, certainly that insecurity, right? I think, for example, like a father brings, or I'll say not only a father, but a stable home brings us that like solid foundation,
Yeah.
And I didn't really certainly have that. And when you don't have that solid foundation, you start to kind of act out things to be something that you're not, because
Try to find an identity.
That's classic thing, right? They talk about bullies. Like bullies are just bullies because they're so insecure. So really all you got to do is step up to them, and you'll see them kind of step away real quick because they are trying to compensate for their internal insecurities. And, and certainly so in high school, I kind of acted out as such. I played my role in that stereotype. And,
Do you mean that you played the bully role?
No, not a bully, but an asshole. Okay. Like I didn't give a shit. We're cussing on this podcast.
Yeah.
My audience will probably be, man, holy crap, we cuss. But I didn't give a shit. I didn't give a shit about school. I was just like my mom. No, my family went to college. I'm not going to college. So screw school. Just trying to be cool. But didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, but trying to be cool. And, in high school, you got the cliques and all that stuff. And, at one point, I ended up getting in a fight in high school. There's a whole story to that, but, I got in a fight in high school, went toe to toe out here at Love Point Park for a little bit, and, ended up in Easton getting stitched up that night. And, and even when I came home, like I think the start of that day after the event, I came home, my grandmother, she lived at home alone. She was elderly, so the door's locked. I couldn't get in. I had to knock on the door. She opens the door. I'm like covered in blood. I'm busted up. I got this, my grandmother's looking at me like, what the hell's going on? So my mom comes home, and she's got to take me to Easton Hospital. And this is like, this is the end of my junior year. So I guess I'm 17. Mm-hmm. And, so I go to Easton Memorial. I'm there. And I just got done, like, the nurse comes in. If you guys are ever been stitched up, right, you get that Novocaine needle, which is always awesome. We'll get one of those right in the base of your lip, because my lip was busted, and so I just got that beautiful Novocaine needle on my lip, and nurse goes out and says, "We'll be back. We'll let that set in." And I kind of look over. My mom's in the corner, just like, she didn't look so hot. Like she wasn't feeling good about the situation. Right. But earlier that week we had gotten a letter in the mail from the American Legion inviting me to Boy State, and Boy State is, I'll say, and I'm not kept up with what it is today or whatever, but to me at the time, the way I describe it is it's like a week-long boot camp. Yeah. Hosted by the American Legion, but at the time at least was facilitated by Marines. Yeah,
run by Marines. I did that too.
Cool, yeah. Awesome. So my mom's sitting in the corner, and she's kind of, with a tear in her eye, so to speak, just kind of looking at me going, "Well, you go to this Boy State thing." And then finally it's just kind of hitting me, like the stuff I'm doing is more than me, right? I was very self-centered in how I was acting out. It was all about me. But I think that's probably, as an immature teen, that was the first point I realized, like, the stuff I was doing wasn't just affecting me and I don't give a shit attitude, but it was affecting others. And so she goes, "Hey, will you go to this Boy State?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And went to Boy State that summer, and I didn't know crap about the military. Right. Yeah. I thought, everything was Army. Like, there was an Army, and that was our military. Nobody in my family was military or anything like that. And so went to Boy State, and it was the first, right, like, real structure. Someone's, because look, my mom coming up and saying, I got a grandmother who's helping raise me. My grandfather had a stroke when I was 5, so he was handicapped in the house. So we're caretaking him. My mom's working double duty, trying to, do her thing, right? She's working a full-time job and then working at Annie's on all the other things around the island. Just, so she's not home, she's working. So, I really never had someone like checking me. They were always taking care of me, right? I don't want to make my story like, we were middle class.
You had a lot of free time.
Yeah. I had a lot of free time on my hand, which was a blast in itself. Learned a lot. But it was just the first time that I just kind of got checked, and at night, we had to stand duty. We have to do this in the Marine Corps once a month too, but we stood duty, and I remember that night, I'm on duty, and the corporal from my little platoon comes back from the bar for sure, and he's got some beer on his breath, and he like sets me aside in a stairwell and just starts asking me about me, and so now I got this. Man, showing interest in, like, me, period. Just,
how did you react to that? You're probably going to tell me that, but
I don't know. I mean, I guess it was a new experience for me in a way that, a man's just asking me, what are you doing with yourself? Yeah. Like, what do you plan on doing with
probably
yourself?
Like foreign to you at that time, I guess.
I mean, and I don't want to embellish it like that, but it was just like, it was, again, a part of that week where I'm kind of getting taken out of my environment, right? Which is, getting me out of my normal burned in neural pathways of just screwing off and not really caring. Now I'm in a place where you lock in, or
the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. And then a part of that, I got this guy going, "Hey man, so what are you doing after high school?" And my answer, "I don't know. I know I'm not going to college." Like, that was my thing. And so he goes, "Man, you ought to think about the Marine Corps." And he started telling me about the Marine Corps, and I was like, okay. And I literally at that point came back, went to the recruiting center in Easton, and depped in. It was like, I'm gonna be a Marine, you know. And
he saw it in you. It sounds like.
Maybe, I don't know, but it just kind of finally I had something that goes, okay, aim at that. Yeah. Right. And I really liked, the few, the proud kind of mindset of it. I definitely thought, because I did talk to the other branches too, but I felt like, for example, the Army, I was just going to be a number. I'm just another number in this big, mass of a military unit. The Navy, I did not want to be on a boat. I get seasick, and you're guaranteed to be on a boat in the Navy from what they tell me. And then there was this few, the proud, like, hey, we got the lowest budget, we got the smallest amount, but we're the baddest asses, And I'm like, I think I can get down with that. And so I wanted to be a Marine. And the other thing I liked about the Marine Corps, on the side. So this is 97, 98. We're all getting internet. We're playing Doom and Duke Nukem 3D if you're ever geeked out on that stuff back in the day. But, the internet's coming about and I have some interest in that. I'm like, this is cool. I'm like playing my cousin on my dial-up computer.
Right.
With Friendly's internet connection, and
Good old Friendlies.
good old Friendly's. So I had some interest in that. So I was wise enough that, although the grunt life, so to speak, was cool, but I knew there wasn't a future in that, right? Like I went in 0311, and no offense to 03s or grunts out there, but for me, I knew I didn't want to make this my career. I had this interest in IT, so it's just kind of started to come together that, well, in lieu of college, I can go get a career here. And in fact, they gave me in total, including my GI Bill, about $50,000 of college money.
Wow.
My test scores were good enough, which I got into IT. But the cool thing about the Marines is everybody's a rifleman, so I still had to do all the grunt stuff and qualify for the rifle every year. Do hand-to-hand combat training and all those things, which I did want to get into. I just didn't want to make that my cornerstone of life. I really foresaw IT being like a great career path in the future. So I just kind of found that kind of perfect opportunity to go, hey, this fits me. I want to go test myself. I want to grow. I want structure. I need it. But I just want to get a trade, but I don't want to go through college to do it. And that's what I did. So there we go. That's how I kind of got started.
Yeah, that's really interesting, man. I did Boys State as well, and I remember the shock of, or at least my experience with it was like, because I had no experience with the military at all, and I'm like 16, 17 or however old I was. You were there, I guess, a couple years before me. But yeah, it's an experience for sure. It definitely is an experience. It's interesting. That I know you said you didn't want to like blow it up a lot, but like not having that father figure and then being in that and then turning into, you kind of focused a lot on like leadership, right? I mean, that's kind of a theme of a lot of your podcast and some of the other things that you do. It's interesting how that you were able to be so successful, in that line, eventually, you know what I mean? As you grew into a man, it's really cool and interesting how that worked out for you.
Yeah, I'd say it was in Marine Corps boot camp where I kind of got that next epiphany with regard to leadership, which is, one thing, when you think boot camp, you think for, in the Marine Corps' case, 13 weeks, we're just, running through mud and climbing ropes and all that stuff. And there is a fair amount of that. It's a lot of cool and fun stuff, but there is at least 25% of the time you're in classroom instruction, learning things. You've got to learn the military rank structures. You've got to learn Marine Corps history. You've got to learn leadership traits and principles, which was, kind of a surprise to me in this manner, right? We are just, and they remind us often, we're just recruits. Like, we're not Marines yet. We are nothing.
Right.
And here we are in this class. And class is really about leadership, and the Marine Corps very much instills a culture of leadership. And I remember kind of in those early classes, the question kind of comes up, which is, well, hey, why are we getting leadership training? We're just boots, even when we get out, at best, we're going to be privates or PFCs, but we're not in charge of anyone. Why are we getting leadership training now instead of when we're a corporal, sergeant, and so on, when we're going to actually be running squads and stuff? And the answer was one that's always stuck with me, which is, whether you're in charge of other people or not, you're always in charge of someone, and that someone is yourself, right? Yeah. And even over the last, I guess, whatever is now, almost 30 years since then, I've really found myself explaining that to people, that, one of the things my friends will go, man, you're so disciplined, man. I wish I was as disciplined as you. And I've kind of come to explain that, to say, look, discipline is just self-leadership, right? Because discipline feels like this hard word. It's like, oh, I got to do all these things and it's tough and whatever. But like, let's take that off for a minute and realize that self-discipline is just self-leadership. Because if you think about like what self-discipline really is, right? It's having a goal, right? Well, leadership, business, organization, whatever, the equivalent is having a vision, mission for the organization. Like, what do we exist for, right? Self-discipline, okay, if you're going to start getting up or start doing jujitsu or start working out or whatever, so why? What is the mission here, right? So next up, okay, you understand your vision. Okay, so what's your strategy to get there, right? What is your plan to achieve that? Well, organizations do that every single day, right? Yeah. Like, and again, if you have a personal goal in mind that you want to be disciplined to achieve, well, now you've got to start building your strategy, your plan. You've got to, just like an organization, you've got to install a set of order of operations and systems, which are going to consistently and systematically get you to achieve that mission, right? Yeah. So when you start looking at it with that lens, you realize, well, self-discipline is just me actually being a good leader of myself and being a good follower of my own leadership and sorts. And I learned that in part, and it's certainly evolved over the decades, then and there, is that, and that's to me, the real difference of people that are like, cliche, like people talking shit versus doing shit, right. People talking shit. I'm gonna, to me anymore, like shut up and do, like, and even I'm really twisted about like social media today. Like oh man, I don't want to be that, hey, look at what I ate for breakfast guy. I kind of like, in part of me going like, I just want to post results, right? Like, I don't want to show you every single step, every day, all the way. I want to go look at what I did for people to go, man, well, how'd you do that? And so it's, self-discipline to me is, leadership's everywhere.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about self-discipline, is that you are the leader and the follower, of yourself. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I've never really thought about it like that.
Dave, yeah, sorry.
I was going to say one other thing. I know I could give you time to ask some questions too, but you had asked us a question along those same lines of what you were just talking about before we started rolling. Like, what is your goal with this podcast, right? And we've had 16 guests now, and everyone is an entrepreneur to some degree, but I would say that you probably have the most experience out of all of them. So if you don't mind, maybe I'll keep that conversation going right now and like get your input on it, So yeah, you asked us like, what was our goal with this podcast? And we kind of started talking about it. From my perspective, we didn't really have much of a goal other than like, hey, let's do it. We had talked about doing a podcast. We thought it would be a cool idea. And like, I was getting into videography, and I already had some audio engineering, hobbyish kind of experience with it. So it made sense to do it. And even though I don't like to admit it, I like hanging out with Mike. He's pretty cool guy.
You gonna let him talk on this show or what? I mean,
before Dale
don't worry.
Like, what do you think? What was your thought?
So my initial thought, it kind of goes along with one thing that he was saying, which is just do it. Like, my thought was like, I don't know where this is going to go, but I feel like we could talk about it all day. Let's just do it and see where it goes, like, and sort of have an organic approach to like, what like this, if we put time into it, it could become something. I feel like, and to sit and like discuss endlessly what it could be or should be at the beginning seemed like just an obstacle to me. Like, let's just do it, what I mean? But I think it is starting to become time to get some more focus. And when you asked that question, it kind of hit me a little bit like, we really should be like, because I think that the podcast, and I've had a few people, like say like this, that could like really be something, like, and I know I'm always searching for a new passion, a new like something else to do, that to monetize. Joe knows I'm all about the monetization.
Hey man, there's nothing wrong with that.
But I do, I do enjoy it. But I don't know. I think that's a good. I think it's a good question to ponder at this point. And I think we are growing. Like we've obviously, we're finding our way a little bit in terms of who we have on versus who we thought we were going to have on. Right. What we talk about versus like it was, we've allowed it to be a bit more loose in terms of what we talk about than what we set out to talk about, which I think is part of the appeal of it. But yeah, like your thought of like, you were talking earlier about the recording, like doing seasons. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea, like getting it all. And we've gotten good at like batching episodes, and being prepared and releasing on time and all that stuff. And that's
somewhat
good, pretty close. I mean, pretty close to what we said. I mean, a day off here or there, but like, but you mean, I'd really like to see it be not a full-time, but I feel like it could be certainly become a stream of income, and something that we could grow and,
Yeah, and I think too, the fact that we didn't spend too much time planning and figuring out every little detail, and we just kind of did it. It did make the feel of those first handful of episodes was very genuine. It didn't feel scripted at all, because it wasn't. We
still isn't.
Yeah, it still isn't, right? But we just talked about like whatever, just like we were having a conversation, and there's a certain appeal to that, I think. But yeah, so I also agree that now we're at a point where we probably should try to focus a little bit more and having a goal. And the whole thing you were talking about, Dale, with having a basically like a long-term goal and then shorter term goals to get there, that's something I'm very familiar with in recovery and with substance abuse counseling. That was something I worked with clients with all the time. Okay, what's your long-term goal? Now let's break it down. How are you going to get there, right? Because just looking at where you are now and your long-term goal with no plan in between is like, that's impossible. I'll never get there. But it's much easier if you have short-term goals. So based on what you know about our podcast and your limited experience with it, like what kind of coaching would you give us?
So, what you guys are saying, and I'm 100% on board with, there is the whole ready, fire, aim mindset, right? So we want to do a podcast. Great. Fire that shot, see where it hits, and now adjust your aim. And that's kind of what you guys are doing. So yeah. I totally 100% support what you're saying, is that we didn't really know what we're doing, but we knew we wanted to try this. And that's a really great point, because the opposite of that I've learned is a word called pedantic, right? Which is you sit there and think about every single possible nook and cranny, detail, outcome, obstacle, risk, whatever, and you never move.
Never do anything.
Right. Never do anything. And you really do need to just be, what I teach people is like, you just got to be directionally accurate, right? Like if you're climbing that proverbial mountain, right? You don't need to know what color the flowers are on top. You just need to know that's where I'm trying to go. And now you zoom down to, okay, well, what's my first step, right? So with the podcast, you guys want to do a podcast. Here's what we're thinking. Boom. What the part where some people miss, and you guys are airing it out right now, which is good, which is then you got to have some point where you're going to reflect on what's been going on. You got to review the situation and kind of what you've learned, and then revise on where you want to go from here, right? Yeah. Because you guys have been doing this now for your 16 episodes. Now you've got something to reflect on and kind of see like, hey, well, what worked, what didn't work? What can we do differently to improve this from here, right? So you've started, climbing that podcast mountain. So as you start to climb, your view of the top starts to get a little bit more clear, right? I teach a lot about the importance of clarity and knowing that depth perception kind of idea, that now that you've started to walk this path a little bit, now you start to get more clarity on where you're trying to go at the top and what it's going to take to get there. And sometimes if it's a right fit for you, right? And that's where you guys are at, right? You're going, okay, we've been doing this, okay, got an idea, you've got some experience on our belt, where do we want to go from here? And now you revise and adjust, and then do it again, right? You say, okay, well, here's what we think, here's how we want to do the next whatevers to make us go towards that new, a little bit more specific direction, right? So, okay, we want to monetize this thing. What does that mean? How do other people do it? And all of that in itself is gathering more clarity. When entrepreneurs or any kind of goal setting, whether it's personally or whatever, do not take that time to do that review and reflect and revise and go again. I always use an analogy like they're a bobber in the ocean, right? If I tossed a bobber in the ocean, it's just going to get pushed around by the wind and the waves and the storms, right? At some point, you want to say, yeah, I'm a bobber in this ocean, and I'm going to learn, and now I'm going to start building my rudder, right? And realize I want to start going that way, right? And you want to continue to kind of use clarity to establish like, okay, and not just get pushed around, because you can just do this podcast aimlessly, forever, and then you're going to get burned out of it because you never really, again, get back to cliche, but it matters. You never really established your why are you doing this?
Yeah.
But if you could, that's going to drive you and keep bringing you back to the table and moving along.
I just assumed at some point that Mike's color and humor and just general personality would just make us famous automatically.
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things that, not what you just said, but one of the things that I'm thinking of is just as we're talking is like, we started out very local and we've kept it. It's still local, but we need to think of a way to make it like a lot of our conversations are local conversations, and it sort of excludes some of the potential
Wider
audience. Like when we're talking about.
ChatGPT did tell us to keep it local and talk about.
I know that's when I was a little. But ChatGPT also told you that you couldn't load 9 things on your camera at one time.
Gives me all kinds of false information. Yeah, man. So so you have a podcast called The Lion's Guide. How long have you been doing that?
I started that in 2000, the COVID era, right? I'm home. I just, I at the time said retired out of Corsica, which was the company I built after the Marine Corps. And again, I was getting hit with those, business owner to business owner who exited, successful company, the how did you do it? And it wasn't just the how did you do it business. It was really about, the contention of being a business owner, right? It is a hard job. It's the whole man in an arena thing. Like you're in it. Like you are, the white collar, blue collar warrior that has decided that I'm not going to rely on someone else to put food on my table. I'm going to put food on my table, right? And that is hard, right? It is so easy to go just get a job, get that steady, and just live comfortable and capped, right? Because you are at the mercy of someone else. You never really, and we talked about this before the show, I believe, you're never really finding that path to personal sovereignty that a business can be, right? When you're a full-time business owner, you call the shots, you can make your income, and you can decide what your life looks like. If you're working for someone else in the military, this is one of the reasons that I didn't want to stay, just personally. I didn't want to have subconsciously in my head, I don't know where I'm going to be living next year.
Right.
Someone has 100% control over that, period. And if I don't abide by it, I'm going to be in Leavenworth, right? Like, I didn't enjoy that. I did enjoy it for a starting point for me and all the things we talked about earlier, but I definitely knew I didn't want to spend the next 20 years of my life beholden to someone else's direction, right? Like and whatever. And certainly you can play the game within those environments. But while I was in the Marine Corps, I started what became Corsica Technologies by supporting small medium businesses out in town. So now we're talking early 2000. Businesses are just now getting broadband. Microsoft's dropping a product called Small Business Server, which was bringing like enterprise class technology that was typically reserved for large businesses. I'm talking BlackBerries at the time. Stuff like that was not accessible to small, medium businesses, but now all of a sudden it was. And my job in the Marine Corps was enterprise networking. I managed a network of 7,500 users, but we also would pick up that network and deploy it on the side of a mountain in the middle of the desert, because that's what we did. And so I had and the other cool part was, of my story, at least in the IT side, was I was in at a time back then where the IT guy was the IT guy. So I learned how to do everything from pull fiber to build websites and everything in between, because you were it. It was actually in the last year of my enlistment that they actually started to diversify the IT field into you're a web guy, you're a cable guy, you're a server guy, you're a network guy. I was fortunately to be in right at the tail end when there's this big boom of technology, and we're expected to know it all, which was awesome for me to get out and start Corsica. And so at the same time, commercially, small, medium businesses were getting hit by all this enterprise technology. And I started the business as a service disabled vet. Bush was pushing through at the time set asides. If you guys know what set asides are, like
I don't.
8A, if you're a minority owned business, woman owned business, whatever. Back then, I think finally in 2003, it got put into law that the government had to have at least 3% of all federal contracts had to go to service disabled veteran owned firms. And I was like, okay, cool. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go do IT for the government. But I learned real quick that there's a lot of dogs fighting over that bone and government contracting, and it's a lot of work to get in, which I didn't enjoy. But meanwhile, small, medium businesses were beating down my door to where I could go in, have a meeting with the business owner that day, sign a contract the next, and we're off to the races. But to do a government bid, it's a big, I got to turn in a freaking book report, and it sucked. I hated that stuff. Again, still didn't love the school type work, and that's how I started Corsica to really just do that. So when I sold Corsica, 15 years later, when I finally exited, it was operating in 5 regions. We had 200 employees. I managed about 40,000 systems across the country.
Wow.
And so a lot of business owners, to get back to your question, it came back to me going, hey, how'd you do that? And it wasn't business. It was like, how did your wife not leave you? How are you still coaching a football team? How'd you run that marathon 5 years in a row, right? Like, it was like, how do you do that stuff and have this successful business? And that's where I really got into kind of, the Lions Guide and the podcast and that stuff, because I found myself like telling the same thing over and over and over again. But at the same time, I didn't make it dalewalls.com because I didn't feel, certainly I had experience, but my experience is not unique, but I wanted to kind of like take what I was learning from others and experience and document it, not only for that reason, but also, my kids, frankly, I didn't really, one grandfather died when I was young. My other grandfather was handicapped for majority of my life. Father was every other weekend dad. Like I don't really have a lot of understanding like what the men in my life thought, did, whatever. And I was like, man, I want to do this so my kids can go, hey, this is how my dad looked at stuff. This is what my dad saw, right? And because the number one thing to me in leadership is setting the example. How you show up is how your team's going to show up, because you are really giving them permission through your action, right? So if you're sloppy, you're late, you're lazy, you're past the buck guy, promise you your team is going to be the exact same way. And the people who do not want to be that way will be gone real quick. And so, for me, with setting the example being, the number one leadership trait, I felt this was an opportunity to really just kind of put out there how I see things for my kids to kind of know where I was at headspace wise.
That's that's very interesting. Mike, I got lots of other follow-ups, but
so I have a question that's not really on topic, but I'm just curious, like, how do you do you utilize credit when you're going to build and you have a new idea and you're ready to, are you cash flowing things, or are you taking a loan from the bank, or are you,
it's a good question.
You seem like a kind of guy that doesn't want to use credit, but I might be wrong.
I don't want to use credit. Right. So now we're getting tactical. So what I recommend to business owners that are side hustling, so to speak, right? Let's play this game a little bit. People are trying to break out. I say, keep your day job, don't waste money, squirrel away money to invest in your side hustle strategically till it's starting to build money that you can start to see a path towards getting yourself out of your job. You're right. I've never really like Corsica. I built with the lint in my pocket, man. We never took a loan, startup, whatever. Now you can do that in that space because it's all service, right? So I don't have heavy upfront costs where, if you're, a tradesman, you got to buy the truck, you got to buy all the equipment. Now, before you know it, you're 60 grand in before you can even start. So I guess I didn't really have that hurdle. But with the digital architects and acquiring that and getting in partnership with Jeannie over there, we self-funded that. But just like I look at businesses as assets, just like a real estate asset. I own rental properties, for example. Cash is king. If you can have cash, you have that agility to see a deal, go get a deal under your terms and your pace. If you don't, there's another party that's going to tell you about that deal, which is going to be the bank or the lender, right? And so I don't enjoy that. I want to be able to be agile. So you want to get to the point where you've got your own fund. But what you do, like in real estate and in business as well, is you'll go out, you'll acquire that property with cash so you can get the deal done. I am a believer in the Buffett kind of mindset is you don't make money on the sell, you make money on the buy, right? You acquire something of value that's currently undervalued, right? So if you got to flip it the next day, you're in good shape. At least you're gonna get your money back.
Right.
That's kind of an internal screen with me and my partner. But then you can do that initial, like if you acquired a rental property and if you had the cash to do it, you go do it. And then you show it's demonstrated cash flow. Then you have the power to go to a bank and say, hey, I've got this asset. I want to get some of my capital back out of it. You pull the capital back out of it, and then you go out and redeploy it. So to answer your question, and I didn't want to cheap out of it and go, it depends. But again, it goes back to that leadership aspect. There's a bunch of ways to skin that cat, but you're not going to skin that cat if every $100 and $1,000 you get in side hustling, you're blowing it on BS and you're not, again, thinking that 5 years down the line, to be building something. And again, back to my idea of personal sovereignty as a business owner is that should be your goal, is that you're actually building a business. You're not building a job. What do I mean by that? Have you guys ever read Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
I did listen to the audiobook.
Yeah. He talks about this. I'm probably a student of that because this is a really great, how to look at being a business owner is, a lawyer, a doctor, these degree-based fields. What they do a lot of times, not all of them, but you'll see a lot of them, they build themselves a job. The business does not exist unless they are billing. The one with the degree, whatever. However, they could be the doctor that builds a practice of how they doctor, and they bring in other doctors who do it their way. They build a clientele, and maybe it's an office, then it's 2 offices or whatever, but it's not them.
That's where I'm at. I've built myself a job, and I'm like really searching for a business, to build a bit. Like, so that's cool. It's cool to hear.
Yeah, the Kiyosaki talks about is the cash flow quadrant, where you're working for someone, you're an employee, or you're what I'm describing here, which is the self-employed, where you create yourself a job, but you can't take vacations, what I mean? Because if you don't work, you don't eat. And then there's business owner, and then there's investor. And you really want to be working towards that element where you own a business asset that produces cash. And then you want to take that excess cash and invest it in investments that also produce cash. Right. And then you've got this, business owner, investor kind of cycle going on where now you're building, a pot of, funds that you're truly getting to that personal sovereignty piece. Right now you're owning these assets, business, real estate, whatever, that are producing cash flow. Now you can do whatever you want.
Is it Rich Dad Poor Dad where he talks about your dollar bills, you send them out and they're like little little army guys that go and earn you more money. They're like working for you or something. He told us about. Is that in the book? I thought so.
His story, that's a really cool story, that his real father was a school teacher and was in the system, right? It was the comfort of the system that I've got my full time, I've got my steady, I've got my benefits, everything's, and that is a comfort zone of having those things, which I get. There's days at entrepreneur going, man, I really wish I didn't have to, go home and my brain spin. I could have clocked out. I get it. But, but he had his best friend, his father was the other mindset. He was building businesses and from small, like from, that he's doing it all, but he's saving his money and he's getting it to the point where he's now paying someone so he can release himself and go work on the next thing. And then over the course of 20 years, he's watching his dad struggle in the system, always be capped, eventually got boxed out because he ran for a local office in Hawaii, and then the system destroyed him. He had nothing because he was so dependent on the system. But meanwhile, his rich dad, his best friend's dad, who kind of hired him and brought him into those businesses, was thriving, and he came from nothing, had no education, none of the things, right? That he was raised, indoctrined, even especially in a household where his mother and father were, get a degree, get the next degree, get a good job, get the good benefits, right? But you're enslaved to that.
Yeah.
So.
Can I ask you, so you have children, and how old are your kids?
One is 16, the other one and two are about to turn 13 and 11.
Okay, perfect. So do they, a couple upfront question. Do they go to public school? Are you homeschooling? What do you do?
Public school.
Okay. So how do you, or do you help them sort of develop this? It's one thing to tell them about it, right? But have you encouraged them, or are they like, Dad, can you help me start I have got this idea. How do you implement that in your raising of your children? Not just telling them, but getting them to learn it, if they want to, of course. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, you hit the right thing, if they want to.
I think that's a great question too, because they have a different situation than you did, right?
Yeah, there is that too. Dude, I tell you, there's many a day I go, man, I wish I just had a lot less, right? So I live in the same house my wife and I bought when we got home from the Marine Corps. I'm not trying to, so now we're going to tap into an area that I'll say, and I don't mean to offend anyone out there, but I don't want to be in that space where, back to enslavement, I don't want to be enslaved to a $1 million mortgage on the property. Yeah. I don't want to have a garage full of cars I got to maintain. Less is more to me. And so, in fact, I live in a 4-bedroom house, and we got a pool, we got some other things that I go, man, I don't even want all this, right? Because, and at least, again, this is just me. Less is more, the more I have, the more I got to think about, the more I want to keep maintained. And so I would say at least we kept kind of that middle-class lifestyle, within our kids. And what I've learned, with my oldest, and definitely probably I tell myself every dad does this, when he came out, I was on him, you're going to be it. I'm going to beat into you everything I've learned, and you're going to, and I had to learn to just kind of back off. I definitely know kids listen to other people more than they're going to listen to me. Yeah, but here's the thing. They are listening, right? You guys have kids?
Yeah, I have one.
4 kids.
How old?
I got 2 12, a 14, and a 15.
So do you have the thing where your kids will go somewheres and the parent or whoever they're with go, man, your kid's a great kid.
Yeah.
And you're like, what kid?
So talking.
Yeah. That one's mine. Or you're talking about that one. You're talking about that one, And so what I learned over time is you've got, back to set an example, you've got to set the example. They are always watching. They are always listening, even when they're rejecting you. And so you've got to set the example. They're watching and listening, and why they don't act like the a-hole when you're not around is because they've been watching and listening. So I've learned I can't beat it into them. I can only set the example. and get them interested and at least go, this is how we live, right? Just, our parents instill in us a blueprint from day one, like how we're going to live. Like they are, they're instilling, this is the life blueprint. And for me, I'd say back to the Marine Corps story, I think until all that went down, I was hell bent and just being I'm going to find some, blue collar job and get by around here. That's what I saw after high school. Right. And again, no offense to this community around here, but that's just what it was. Like, you're going to graduate high school and
that's the norm.
You're going to fall into something for a few years and you're going to whatever, and you're going to hope that you can afford to buy a house at some point. Right. When I got ripped out of this system and got exposed to the Marine Corps, I just started to expose myself to the rest of the world. And so I just need to my kids set this example so that they show interest and be ready when they start going with that. I want this. Great. How are you going to get it? You thought I was going to? No. And we're hit that point with my oldest now that we want to support him. He has goals, football and things like that. We will support him in the things that if he's going to like be all in football, he wants to play collegiately, right? There's going to be a lot of requirement of him. So I can't go, hey man, you need to go get a full-time job. You're not in school, you're working, because when he's not in school, he needs to be working out and working towards that goal. If that's what he's after, we will support him in that. So we're going to pay for his gas money for him to get back and forth to school and to practice and those things. But when he's like, I want to go here, I wanted to go there, I want to put this on my truck. Yeah, that's cool. How are you going to pay for that? Right. So, there's this dichotomy of supporting, which we should familially support one another, and then coddling.
Absolutely.
And my wife and I are really there, and not like we're king dictators around the house either. Like we want to have a joyful environment, but we definitely want to make sure we're not just going, well, here you go. Well, here you go. Well, here you go. Because that instilled in me at least the necessity to go put in the work and say, man, I want, back then in the 90s, like people were buying a starter jackets and these things that are like $100, I didn't have that. And I want my kid to want, and that's kind of like why I did some of the things I did back in high school, is because I didn't want, to stay kind of living paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, and that necessity will drive them. So if you're giving them everything, I mean, everyone knows this, like you're giving them everything, they're not going to want for anything. They're not going to want to do anything. So
they're going to think that it's all just handed to them.
Yeah. Yeah. So like say, we'll as far as our kids now, we'll support them. But we're not going to gift everything.
Have any of your kids shown interest in like, I want some sort of entrepreneurial life, or is it not quite there yet?
We're starting to see that, right? So my oldest now, he's got a truck now. He's going to start driving here in the next month. Now he's starting to feel that, hey, well, how do I earn these other things? And so, with our businesses, which we treat as kind of like a family office now, it's like, hey, great. I want you to take over, this part of the property management stuff. You're an outdoorsman. You like doing outdoor stuff. You've talked about wanting to do your own like landscaping business and stuff. Great. We'll start here. You work for me now. You do the landscaping for our properties, starting with the house, starting with the other ones. I do some property management for some, properties here in the area. You're going to take over that, right? And now you're going to get the cut that we're getting for management fees and stuff for that. You're going to start earning, but you're going to be responsible for that. So, back to my oldest, I just definitely learned like you can't lead by force. I'm not going to force them to do anything, but I need to give it time, set the example, and it will kind of start to come out of them. And I'm starting to see that now. Cool. So. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, like with my kids, they all have like a desire to, or at least they're younger, but they have like a desire to do something that's not 9 to 5 type of thing. You know what I mean? And I'm always torn between like, well, I want to give them some hands-on or help them with their ideas and things like that. But at the same time, it's like, well, Luis is 15. Like, you kind of need to like also get a job. You know what I mean? It's like this kind of balance between, you know, helping them with to implement their ideas. I was just curious if you know what you do with that, but I think you've answered the question.
Yeah, and there's another great book. I'm a bit of a book pharmacy. You know, the E Myth by Michael Gerber, which talks about the way I got into IT business when I came back was kind of straight out of that book. Where you know, certainly I had my side customers when I was in the Marine Corps and I serviced them, got paid for it. But when I came back, I took a job with a firm that did that and spent a year with them kind of learning how the business really works, in a business that's been doing it for 10 years at the time. So even like if your kid has this entrepreneurial desire, you know, I would have that conversation of like, hey, well, why don't you get a job in that space, whatever it is you want to do, and kind of see how it works. Back to like startup money and all that stuff. There's no startup in taking that job when it's strategic, right? So again, back to leadership and strategy is like, hey, well, I want to do, like if we were picking on my son saying, hey, I want to have my own landscaping business. Hey, well, why don't you go work for a landscaper? See how it works. You know, like, see if you like it. You know, but strategically with the end in mind, going, you're going to take that job as a project for a year. And in a year, if we're going to sit down and talk, like, do you want to do this? You know, do you want to get your own, you know, equipment and do this, right? And similarly, if your kid has interest in that area, encourage them to go get that job in it to feel it out with that low risk environment. If they do like it, they're learning so much about the skill set, probably learning more, but also how the business of it works.
Yeah,
So cool.
It's interesting to think about. A question I was going to ask you is, you know, when do you think you started to grasp that concept of, you know, earlier when you were talking about the difference between having a job and building a job for yourself, and then building a business and creating a business that you can basically have it run itself, and then you can step away and you can move on to the next thing. It's such a big picture kind of concept, you know, to think about work, I guess, or making money in that way. And, you know, I'll be 43 in a month, and I only recently like kind of grasped that concept. Like, okay, yeah, that is a much different way to look at it. You know, my only concept of work and making money for most of my life was, you get a job, you do work, they pay you money for it. And some jobs have benefits and health insurance and 401ks, and wow, that's really cool. You know, the family I grew up in was definitely more like the poor dad family mentality when it comes to work. You know, those jobs that have those benefits are worth so much. You know, you might be making $15 an hour, but you have health insurance, you have a 401k where they match it, and you get paid time off, and that's worth another $5 an hour. You know, I think maybe sometime in my 20s, I started to realize that. You know, before that, I was like, fucking benefits, what the fuck is that? I don't give a shit about that. I just want the money. You know what I mean? Oh, the government takes taxes? No, I'm trying to work for this guy who gives me a 1099 because he gives me all the money.
Right.
You know, I had that mentality for such a long time. And Mike's asking, you know, how do you kind of guide your kids? So it's like, it makes me think of how do you help a kid, your own kid, like, see that bigger picture, you know? And like, when do they develop that? It's interesting to me, like, how you can try to guide your kid, or just like how people in general, when they shift that mindset, you know? And that was a question I was going to ask you, like, when do you think did you grasp that whole big picture concept like early on, or was that something that took you a long time to develop or grasp? That was like 5 different questions.
Yeah, I hate the. I've read some books where people inspire me, and you know, there's one guy, I won't name his name. He's got another book right now, so I won't hate on him. But he because I do love the dude. But one of the things that these personalities online do, and this one, and I'll put it in this example, like, this guy does a lot of stuff, and one of the things that he does is he runs like these 250 mile runs, you know.
Wow.
And, you know, I was like, man, I want to read this guy's book. And, you know, and then it's like in chapter 1, you know, he's talking about his childhood and he goes, yeah, when I was 5, I was running 2 miles to school every day. And like right away, I in my head, I'm going, well, you just displaced everyone that would want to aspire to get where you are, because you basically just said, I've always been this way. I've had it like this since I was born. It's like, okay, well, great. Now I'm just reading your story. I can't relate to it. It's the guys I really love. You know, you guys ever heard of David Goggins?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. What I love about Goggins is he's honest, that he was 300 pounds. He lied about everything. He's got some really great books. And, you know, I look at his following online versus some of these, like, you know, and I got SEAL friends, and I'm not afraid to say this anymore. Like I joke with those guys and go, hey, you know, I can't swing a dead cat without hitting a SEAL trying to sell me a book, a protein shake, or a leadership course, right? And you know, and there's all this like, I've always been a hard ass, you know. But David Goggins, if you look at his following compared to those other guys, he has 16 million followers, and those other guys that are kind of playing in that space is like hanging their hat on their veteran status and all these things. And again, those guys are all great, have done good things, served our country, are badasses. But here's the difference, in my opinion. Goggins goes, I had to become that, right? My dad beat me. I came through hell. I had to pull myself out of it. And that's what I want to hear. I want to hear the dude that really just is honest about the fact that we are all flawed, right? So no, I even when I got out of the Marine Corps, you know, I had to have someone tell me, running Corsica in the early days, basically, hey, you do realize all of us didn't go to Marine Corps boot camp, right? Because I'm still wearing like platoon sergeant hat, running that office. You know, everyone's 100%, you know, and I'm hitting people between the eyes because of the standard I hold myself to. Right. And that was a big mistake I had to learn, because I lost some good people. And when you lose people for the wrong reasons, you would lose other good people along the way. So, you know, this is all learned from screwing up, you know, back to the ready, fire, aim, like go screw it up. You know, and then don't beat yourself up about it. Go, well, I know that doesn't work, you know. And this, again, it's all cliche, and this stuff's been said over and over and over and over again since the freaking Bible. And there's a million different books saying the same things in 50 different ways. And I am here too. That's why I think I'm not original in this. I've just kind of, you know, committed to it, you know. And so you got to be. So I didn't get this. This is this conversation, and I'm still screwing up, right? Like, but you can't be afraid to screw up. I mean, one of the things, like the Lions Guide thing, I tell people, like, well, what is the Lions Guide, and why did I hang my hat on that name? And it's like, one, because I definitely learned, and I want to say this is kind of original to me, that, you know, clarity, you know, the more clarity you do, right, the more time you spend on, like, what you want the podcast to be, what is it going to take to get there, learning that skill set. That is in every one of those things, establishing clarity, right? So in the music space, right, like you can't pick up and just play guitar because you have no clarity on how to do it. So when you start watching the videos or coming to get lessons from you, you're instilling clarity of, well, what are the chords? How do you hold it? All the things. Well, with clarity comes confidence, because that kid or student you have come in, the minute you start shining a light on what it means to have a guitar in your hands and produce music, well, the more clarity they get, the more confidence they get.
Sure, yeah.
And in all things, the more confidence we get, the more courageous action we're going to take, right? The more confident we are in something, the more likely we are to do that something. And so one of the things that I've just really, you know, keep at my core is, like, if I'm struggling with something, or even I'm reluctant to do something, and we talked about ChatGPT earlier a little bit, well, boom, like your answers to the test are all right there, really. That's an answer engine, right? You went from search engine to answer engine, right?
Supposedly.
What's that?
I said supposedly.
Yeah,
it'll feed you some bullshit.
With a sense of humor. It's got a sense of humor.
Which is another great topic too. But the point is, if you're struggling to act on something, I always tell people like then you lack clarity, right?
Yeah.
You haven't spent time on what to do or what is the next thing. Maybe you're scared of step 6, but you haven't even taken step 1 yet. And the more you work on establishing that clarity, you're going to build your confidence. And the more confidence you build, the more likely you're going to take that action courageously. And it's like, and what is courage? Courage is a virtue, meaning local talk. Right. If I jumped out of an airplane, that's pretty bold. Right. But it's not courageous because it's not you didn't do anything virtuous. You just jumped out of a damn airplane. You had the balls to do it. If I went down to the jetty and picked a fight with one of the big bikers in there, that's pretty brave and bold, but it's not courageous. But if you're that firefighter that sees the flames and hears the kid in the 2nd floor and you kick down that door and run in there, that's courageous because that's virtue. Like that's doing the right thing despite your fears.
Yeah.
And that's where I really go like back to being courageous and taking courageous action with the podcast. Like once you have your vision for it, now you're talking about like, hey, is that the right thing for us? Yes. Okay. How taking courageous action to get there. Right. And all things. So establishing that clarity gives you that confidence to take courageous action.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, I would. It's interesting the way you explain that. It does make sense. Jumping out of a plane, I guess I would have said it's either courageous or stupid, one of the two things, But yeah, that makes sense, especially when it's compared to like a firefighter, going into a burning building to save, people that are inside of it. So what do you have, what are some current things that you're working on? Like what's going on in your life these days?
Right now, a few different things. As mentioned, partner with Jeannie at the Digital Architects here out of Stevensville. Really just bringing back, I jokingly tell people who get it that, when I was running Corsica, even then it was like, if you guys come in, you got a computer problem, your day sucks. Well, I came in, I had everybody's computer problem, times 40,000,
Right.
And that's high stress, because really, our dependency on IT today, like, if someone's system's down, a business isn't running, it's all the things. 5 years after selling and exiting Corsica, I feel like I got far enough away from that pain to be willing to go back, because I do enjoy it. And I think it's an old hat to me. So I really enjoy working with Jeannie and kind of reinstilling here locally, because that company I sold to kind of like has kind of moved out of this area. And I really took pride in bringing what I knew to a business and creating all these jobs. My wife and partners have talked about Corsica, that like we reminisce, like some of these kids that we hired fresh out of high school or going to Chesapeake or whatever, like they met their now wife at Corsica, and now they have kids. They're Corsica babies, so that's cool. And I really do. I've learned. I didn't realize this until later. That I enjoy helping business owners with what I know. And that's what Lions Guide was. Like I thoroughly enjoy helping business owners contend with business ownership. And a lot of people, when they're asking me like their business challenges, I've learned early on, it's not the business, it's you, man. Let me work on you and watch how your business thrives, right?
Yeah.
Let me help you become a real business owner. And then, everything else will start to fall in place that you think are business problems, but they're really you problems. And I learned, that's what IT was, because my day-to-day was running that business. I'm very technical. I make this laptop stand up and do a backflip, but that wasn't how I spent my day. I spent my day like advising business owners and then coming back and employing my team with my knowledge and systems that I wanted to be, but I didn't make it. It was me, only me. So I learned kind of personally, I enjoy helping that small business owner who has committed to putting their own food on their table. I mean, I respect the hell out of it. And if I can help them in the IT space and what became Lions Guide, in just the business ownership space, I enjoy helping them with what I know.
Have you I mean, I guess maybe you've monetized the podcast, but have you monetized that? Like just like business coaching? I recently got a business coach. I've just kind of started with him where I meet with this guy once a month and we just have a Zoom call. You know, we haven't really gotten to the meat and potatoes of it yet, but he charged me $400 an hour, so it's a lucrative thing, you know. It's like having an attorney.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Didn't know I could be charging that much. But yes. Yeah. So that was a little bit of why I've taken a hiatus from the podcast itself, because the business of Lions Guide started to take over, and because the podcast was really like a pet project where I started. While I had been doing that, I had been recording lessons and teachings, you know, so and getting hired and doing consultations, doing speaking engagements, running groups. It just kind of started the business part of it started to take root. And for me, at least, the podcast was just something like a necessity that wasn't bringing any value. Now that the business was saying, hey, you know, you're doing, you know, half a dozen and more calls a week with clients who are paying you, and you're running workshops or organizations, the business demand kind of overrid the podcast for the last 2 years. And I'd say in part, we talked about earlier, because the podcast just became this, like, got to do it because we started it and it was evergreen every week, every episode, that once, you know, certain guests like were bailing out on you last minute and stuff, like, got really annoyed me, and it kind of said, but I'm carving out a whole afternoon once a week to get episodes done. But meanwhile, the business of Lions Guide was going, hey, you know, so
I didn't realize that. I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't realize that the podcast was just one part of the Lions Guide. I was, in my mind, the Lions Guide was the podcast, but it's a whole business.
It is a whole business.
Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
And it's just kind of back to, you guys mentioned earlier, it's just organically come. And so when we hit that part, just seeing the feedback from the podcast, feedback from speaking engagements, and the interest for help. And I'd already gotten that day one, but kind of turning that into, you know, a business and serving people, you know, that kind of took over. And that's the thing, you know, there's ebbs and flows, right? There's everyone looks for this balanced stuff, right? Like, you got to be balanced and you know. I say you really got to be prioritized, right? So it was kind of one of those moments where I could go, well, I could try to like do everything and be balanced, and it's like, no, like, the monetization part of that business is calling and needs focus and attention. The podcast aspect at the moment isn't really fitting that. But it's taken up a ton of time, and all we're really doing, you know, offense, but like, all we're really doing is promoting other people. We've got to like peddle a book and whatever, which, again, no offense, met some great people and all that stuff, but it wasn't serving what the demand of Lions Guide was becoming, right? So I, like I said, okay, well, let's time out that, and shifted that same time into like taking all my current one-on-one customers and doing a group and serving the other things. And then like I say, when we acquired TDA last August, well, that's a whole big project that now we're starting to come through here a year later, of me kind of going, okay, wow, watch this. Let's build TDA 2.0 with a lot of everything that Jeannie had learned and built and is going well. And now let me bring the next level of that from the scale that I brought to Corsica. And we're really now starting to get in stride with that, which is getting me to pick my head back up and go, okay, now I know what I want to do with the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Talk about.
Man, you got a lot going on.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. It really, just that alone is like inspiring, like how much you're able to, accomplish and keep going all at the same time. Man, I've got so many questions. Mike, what else do you have?
I'm always curious, like, what's your, and I'm not asking this because I'm going to try to copy it or something, but what's your routine? What you seem like you get up, you have a routine. It's probably pretty specific. Can you tell us about that?
In the life of Dale Walls.
No, I'm not asking that. I purposely am not asking that question.
That's the question you had.
It's a different question.
It's a good question.
It's a totally different question.
Well, this is going to be the eye roll moment for a lot of people listening, right? And you know, yes, I do get up early. You know, here's the thing. How do you get it all done? Well,
you probably swim across the Chesapeake Bay every morning.
I get up and I swim the bay.
I work at Sandy Point.
Been doing that since I was 5.
I guess what I'm really asking is, what are the things that you do every day that if you didn't do them, you would feel like, something's off.
Man, I love the way you worded it that time.
That's really what
That
I'm
was
wondering.
great.
So if that helps.
I'm going to tell you, like, so I definitely have to eat my own dog food. Here's the thing, right? Like, back to the planning aspect of it. Like, one of the parts of the courses I wrote inside the Lions Guide Academy, I wrote my initial course was called The Lions Guide to Self-Discipline. So all the stuff I'm kind of chopping up about, like, leadership is discipline. I wrote a 10-lesson course on that. And so, and one of the other things I teach in that, so you're going to build a system, right? So you got your goals and say, hey, well, if I want to achieve this, what does an ideal week look like, right? That's going to be moving me towards that, right? And you're going to instill a system. And then at the end of the week, you're going to go, okay, what worked, what didn't work, right? And that includes at the end, like, for example, one of the main things I know that messes me up is that at the end of the day, I got to stop everything. And this gets real hard right now because I've been coaching youth football for 8 years. I treat that as a whole other job. I've been criticized for thinking I'm trying to win the youth Super Bowl. I'm not, but
That's what a coach is supposed to do, right?
That's what I say. But I'm the type of person, if I'm going to invest my time in something, I want to do it right. I hate the sloppiness. It's not that I hate the sloppiness. I hate the result of sloppiness, right? That stupid regret where you go, man, if only I would have spent the time doing that right, it would have came out much better. But now it's done. So, one of the things that really makes or breaks me is at the end of the day, I got to take 15 minutes before I shut down and run out the door and grab my whistle to go to the field. Is I need to pull up my schedule for tomorrow, right? Back to doing a ton of crap, right? I'm doing meetings, I'm doing guesting on podcasts, I'm doing customer stuff. I need to sit down and I'm old school. Yes, I'm a tech, but I'm a pencil and paper dude, right? So I print out my Outlook day, I put it in front of me, I grab the pen, and I start laying out my day from the time I wake up till the time I'm going to go to bed. This is what my day is going to look like tomorrow. And even if I have a meeting, I take a quick moment. I use Remarkable. I pull out Remarkable and I go ahead and create my meeting like points for that meeting, for all 4 meetings the next day. I'm ready for those meetings. I have a game plan for tomorrow. Now I can walk away from my desk and my mind will actually turn towards what I'm going to go do. If I do not do that, my subconscious sits there and goes, you got that meeting tomorrow. You got the shift podcast tomorrow at 10. You know that, right? You're not ready. You haven't thought about it, whatever. And that's a spit that, that's probably not the case, but like you got a sales meeting tomorrow, that's coming. But when I take the time to like just plan my day, so taking that time out, slow down and just setting an intention. Now, there's a lot of lessons I teach in that. I got to give myself grace. I got to give myself buffer time. One thing, you're going to have a plan, like the Mike Tyson quote, then you're going to get punched in the mouth and your plan's out the window. That's fine. It's going to happen. And this is where I teach people, like, I'm not a perfectionist. I'm flawed, but I do strive for excellence. And excellence means I'm going to go after it in the best that I can, knowing that I'm going to make mistakes and it's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to strive for excellence, right? And that, a lot of people go, it needs to be perfect. And the minute it's not, it's like, that everything's ruined now. I see that in kids and I try to instill that in kids, coaching and stuff. Go, hey, look, be willing to make the mistakes, but be committed to learning from that mistake. And again, it's cliche, whatever, but that dude, that gives you such a relief. And so I plan my days, and then I do get up at 4 a.m. I do, because I have to have that before 8 a.m. Once 8 a.m. comes, my day is taken by other people. So from 4 to 8, I get up and I do all the things, because you do need to work on yourself. This comes back to the contention piece. If I'm going to run multiple businesses, coach football, provide for my family, well, I can't just wake up at 7:45 and get that done. It is not going to happen.
Right.
If I want to slop through and get a comfortable job that I just show up to with a half-assed boss and a half-assed organization that just doesn't really care, then sure, I can get away with that. But that's not my life, So I do need to get up early. I do need to prioritize rest, my health. And that's back to the thing that when people ask me, like, hey, how do you do all this? How do you run Corsica? How do you run the marathons? How are you doing jiu-jitsu? And I say, look, man, like, as CEO of Corsica, I have to lead and hold accountable the service department the sales department, the back office, all of that. If any one of those things fails, right? Service sucks, but sales are awesome. Well, I'm going to bring in a bunch of business that's going to fall right out the back door. They both have to be good. So in my life, what I did was basically zoom out and go, well, Corsica's a department. My family's a department. My health is a department, right? All those things. And because if Corsica was it, if my business was it, yes, that's how you get into, you come home, your wife's not there anymore because you're never here and I found someone else and whatever. So yeah, that's the equivalent of you focused on the sales department, but you didn't focus on the service department. Now the business is over. Well, you focused on the business, but you didn't focus on your family. Now your wife is gone. So you do. And again, this is where it comes back to why I love helping the business owner, because that's a lot of thought to contend with, and you got to be able to contend with it. And I think that's the point that, yes, if you want all those things in business, you're going to have to fight. Like, it's going to be hard and it's going to suck, but damn, it's going to be worth it, right? And that's it. That's how I do it. Like I do systemize and give myself the grace. And there's times, and here's the thing we haven't talked about. You started getting to this, but I wanted to make an important thing. You're going to get hated on.
Oh yeah.
And I think the biggest, even when I was starting Corsica, I was getting shit. Like, why are you working so much? Why aren't you hanging out? Why aren't you doing this? And it was like this, the crabs in a bucket trying to pull me back into
right.
the status quo, which is okay. That works for people who have that job and they're working towards retirement and whatever. That wasn't me. I didn't want it to be me. So yeah, I was working, I was busting my ass. And those same people now are going, you're a cool deal. Look at what you do.
Hey, how'd you do that?
Yeah. And again, no hate against them, but there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I think like one of the biggest things, there's times where, and again, people are going to roll their eyes. Here's the thing. I don't love drinking. I do. I have. There's been times where I haven't and said I'm never going to drink again. And then especially usually football season, I'm completely stressed out. And after a game, I go, give me a effing beer, but here's the point. I know, for example, like alcohol is fun to drink. We all feel good. It helps, especially take the chains off. Right. But I know in order for me to get what I want out of the day, I got to be 100%. And I know alcohol is poison, and I hate the way I feel after I drink. I'm old freaking turd now that I can't have a beer without knowing tomorrow that I drank beer today. But and so I don't enjoy drinking. I do. I'm strategic about it now. But there's time where it's like, yeah, I'm not drinking. And people kind of give you this look, you're at the bar or whatever, party, and you're like, nah, I'm good. I'm not drinking right now.
Are you sick? Is something wrong with you?
Yeah, it's something wrong with you. And, I just definitely learned that, people are always looking at you through the reflection of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had to realize that I was, and they don't know they're doing this. I'm not trying to hate on people. It's something I had to tell myself, is that my why for not drinking right now is because tomorrow I want to get up at 4 because I got to get ahead of my day and I want to keep working out and I want to get myself straight and I want to have a great day tomorrow. So no, I'm not drinking right now. It's not a priority. And then, well, you got something to say about me because I'm drinking now. Like, do you? This isn't about you. This is about me. I got nothing against drinking, man. Do it. Have fun. But I learned that people kind of like subconsciously see their
they feel guilty, but they don't admit that.
You're right, and I hate to kind of make it about them, but they kind of like resent that you're willing to do something that they're doing.
Sure, yeah.
And you got to take that. So that goes back to when you take and decide that you want to achieve these levels of sovereignty in your life and your health, your wealth, and all the things, you're going to get hit with that like pushback, like, oh, well, you're not drinking, so what do you think about me because I am drinking? Right. As a simple example of that, but it's the same thing when you're out trying to do your own thing and your friends are trying to call you to come hang out, and you're like, man, I can't, I got to work tomorrow, I got a good gig coming up or whatever, and you're catching that heat, you just got to know that's just a part of it, man. That's a part of the contention that you're going to have to deal with in addition to the work. And I like everyone, but you know, there's that stuff is also infectious. Like what you're around, you know, it seeps in, man. And that comfort zone feels good, like, you know, and so I have definitely gotten to the point where I'm strategic about the things I'm doing, especially when I'm crossing into the dark side. Because I'm a high performer, but I can be a high performer drinker too. So it's like one of those things, like, you know, once I crack that first beer and get into two, like, oh, okay, well, let's see what we're drinking. But I know that's a trap that I know in self-aware and whatever. But so you got to build your system for your goals. If that answers your question. I mean, mine starts early and ends early. Sleep's a big thing, man. Like, you know, sleep's a big thing.
Yeah.
Get some sleep.
I was going to ask you earlier, how do you sleep? Like, not as a joke, like, do you sleep well? But, you know, I would imagine you were talking about looking at your planner for the next day and being able to quiet that subconscious of, I got that meeting. So I know that all that kind of stuff is very helpful, especially with like suppressing anxiety about like, hey, what did I not do? It's funny, me personally, I very much understand all of that, and I'm pretty decent with it, but not, I don't strive for excellence with it for sure. I'll make like checklists for myself, because sometimes I'll find myself where, you know, in the back of my mind, I've got this. Okay, cool. Oh yeah, I've also got that. And then I'll start working on, oh shit, I got that too. And I'm like, okay, I've got too many things in my head right now. I need to make myself a list. And I do that pretty frequently. It's very helpful.
So what makes you say I don't strive for excellence right now?
I can be lazy. I can be lazy for sure. And I'm also hard on myself. Mike knows this with a lot of different things, but so I'm probably being somewhat hard on myself because, you know, I've been a pretty successful business owner for the past 3 years. And I was not before that. I worked for the man my whole life. So maybe I am striving for excellence because I'm constantly trying to get better. And I guess my point of what I'm trying to say is, like, even though I do these things, I could do them better, which I guess is striving for excellence.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, when you look at it and go, hey, here's what I could be doing better, and then commit to it, right? When you commit to that next evolution of what it is that you're doing. I think that's the other thing that entrepreneurs miss is, like, you need to schedule those breaks. Like, you know, it's not the, you know, hustle culture. I'm going to work 24/7. Like, you do need to know what is your recovery from that. You know?
I think for me, I guess part of like what I was trying to say is, like, sometimes I feel guilty that I'm like, I'll take a nap in the afternoon because I just want to. You know, I'm just like, I'm tired, like mentally tired, and I just want to like lay down and watch YouTube and fall asleep for an hour. But then I kind of feel like, man, I could have gotten something done. But then I'm like, well, it's kind of self-care, you know? I felt tired, but I wrestle with that sometimes.
What would you have rather have done?
Worked on something else that I had on that checklist.
So why were you tired that afternoon?
That's a good damn question. Probably because I don't eat very well. You know, I don't exercise. I don't get up early enough. I stay up late, you know, all those things. So
there's the departments. Right there,
right.
Like the other departments are failing, and now that's affecting your main department. Right.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I know, like, again, that's what I was saying. I'm trying not to go like, well, I do everything right, guy, and it starts at 4 a.m. But it's necessary if I want to contend with the life I want, right?
Yeah.
Like, it is necessary because I'm the same way, man. I don't want to feel like I don't feel like doing shit in the afternoon because I got stuff to do, and just kind of working on it, right? You know, using GPT, man. And again, this is going to geek out, but it's fun. But I've learned a lot. Like, I did a genetic test, right? I gave it to GPT, and it told me all the things that I did not know about supplements I was taking, how my genetic profile liked and didn't like certain things, and like my energy level, once I started learning, like, well, oh shit, I'm taking creatine monohydrate, but based on my genetics, I'm very inflation adverse. I don't know, it's something about inflation, and taking creatine monohydrate. I learned, GPT told me, like, well, your genetics hate that. You should be taking creatine HCl. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, I'm working out all the time, I got to be taking creatine. That's what the internet tells me. But I learned, well, I was taking a wrong one. It was killing my energy and drive. And then I switched over and I was like, holy shit, boom, done. Energy back, problem solved. So, you know, you do need to like solve for those problems that are holding you back, but that's just it. That's the game. Like, ready, fire, aim, right? I'm doing this. Okay. Here's how my week turned out. I don't like those things. Those aren't working for me. How can I adjust? Here's my game plan for the next week. Execute on a new game plan. Look back. Hey, well, I only laid on the couch and watched the YouTube on Friday afternoon this week instead of every afternoon or whatever.
Right.
You know, but that's just the work, man. You know, it is, and just, you know, if you want it bad enough, you'll do the things. You know, you'll start doing it.
Yeah, that right there is very true. If you want it bad enough, you will do it. You know. I have to insert. Mike, do you have anything? I want to insert this funny ChatGPT story because Dale brought up ChatGPT. So
Go for it.
So we end up talking about ChatGPT at least once an episode, and I was telling Mike that So I have this. It's like experience with it where it's fucking awesome, but at the same time, it feeds me false information quite often, and it's infuriating. So without getting too in the weeds about it, I was talking to it last night. I got a new camera. It's got some features on it that I was trying to figure out. You got to go on the Nikon website and create an account, you know, give them all your information, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like using ChatGPT to help walk me through this process of how to do it. And I had already watched some YouTube videos on it, and the YouTube videos were like mainly like, you can do it, but it's a pain in the ass and you got to kind of figure it out, right? So I'm like, all right. And ChatGPT is like, first it's like, okay, go in the menu and you know, go under the gear icon and then go to the pencil icon, and then you look for picture profiles, and I'm going in there and it says set picture profiles, not picture. So I tell ChatGPT, I'm like, I see set picture profile, not picture profile. Oh, you're absolutely right, Joe. That's what it says. I'm like, okay, so why the fuck didn't you just tell me that? Okay, fine. So then I'm trying to put these picture profiles download them off the Nikon website and put them on my camera. And the website is showing me, it looks like you can use up to 9 of them. It doesn't explicitly say that. It kind of is like, that's the way it looks. ChatGPT is saying that you can only do 1 at a time. And I'm like, well, that's kind of stupid. And ChatGPT is like, lately like talking to me as if it's a person, right? Like using, you know, more commonly used language, I guess. And it's like you're absolutely right. It always tells me that you're absolutely right, Joe. Fuck you, ChatGPT. Then it's like, yeah, Nikon's language is confusing as hell. That's what it said. It's like it makes you think that you can use 9 picture profiles, but you can only use 1, and it's really annoying. And this is a widely known issue that many users are complaining about. And I'm like, yeah, that's weird. Like, why does it look like that? So anyway, I'm like, fine, okay. So I figured out how to get 1 on it. And then I stopped talking to ChatGPT, and I'm like messing with it myself. And I realized, oh yeah, you just push this button and it downloads all 9. So I went back and I told ChatGPT, I'm like, yeah, I just figured out that you can. And it's like, you're absolutely right, Joe. Like, what the fuck? Why didn't you tell me that right from the beginning? Like, why? And I've had so many experiences with it now where it will tell me something. And I was telling Mike, like, it's not just false information that it's given me. It's very detailed false information, like extremely detailed false information. And then I'll call it out and say, well, actually, it's this way. And, oh, yes, Joe, you're absolutely right. That is, in fact, the accurate information. And I'm just like, this is artificial intelligence that has access to the entire internet and, you know, knows everything. Why is it telling me things that are not accurate. And then when I call it out, it's not like, oh, thanks for that information. I didn't know that. It says, yes, in fact, Joe, I did know that, but I told you the wrong thing. Like, God, I want to throw my computer through the window.
Here's the thing. So what I tell people with using AI, and this hashtag leadership again, but you got to treat it.
You got to be the leader.
You have to lead it. I'm serious. You have to treat it, dude. I used to joke all the time when I started hiring people. We're cussing on this podcast, right? Like I used to be like, what's the biggest problem with people or with businesses? It's like when you have these people, right, and you got your team, and now you're contending with people issues. And I used to say early days, like, where are they at with these fucking robots they promised us? Like these personnel issues every day. Like, where are these effing robots? Well, we are here, right? Yeah. Like we at least have, the Jarvis, from Iron Man at our disposal. But I definitely have learned that, you have to treat it like an employee, and it's the smartest intern you've ever hired. Right. And it's got a 200 IQ, but it's extremely lazy. It's only going to do exactly what you ask of it. Yeah. And it's going to try not to let you down initially. It's going to tell you what you want to hear.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So you really have to kind of like, just like you would with that person that you hired on your team that you're going to employ with tasks and run out and find out how to set this up, right? Just like that intern. Well, you're not just going to you're going to trust but verify a bit and proceed with caution, because they're smart, but they really don't know everything. They're really just trying to please you, and they're only going to do exactly what you asked of them. So I've found, yes, same experience. Like when you ask for give me the 30 steps to get this done, it's going to give you 30 steps or whatever. It's going to tell you what you asked for. It's not saying it's exactly right. And where I've seen it screw up is it's not kept up with, because I did a similar thing with one of our software tools that we use in the IT space. It gave me some instructions, but where it got hung up was one step was actually not that anymore. And it kind of threw the whole rest of the thing off.
Right.
So yeah, you got to it'll help you get started. And I've really, cautioned myself from letting it do my creative. I kind of let it give me feedback instead of hey, write this article for me on this. I kind of go hey, I want to write an article. Here's the things I want to say in it, and kind of feed it the raw data, and now treat it like now it's a ghostwriter on my team, but it's my stuff, right? So I now have a ghostwriter, personal ghostwriter agent that I do use for everything, because for it to scale and speed up what I'm doing, right? Not to do it for me, but I got to get this email back to this customer. I got to tell them all this, but I don't have 10 minutes to sit there and type it up and make it pretty. Give me something.
Right.
I am really great at, if you give me something, I'll tell you everything that's right and wrong about it. If you give me a blank slate, I'm going to sit there and stare at it.
Yeah.
So that's where GPT has helped me to go, when I got that blank slate, where do I want to start? GPT, boom. And it's become a trigger for me. If I'm stuck or telling myself I don't have the time for anything, I quickly go, do this for me. And then it gives me something that now I can pick apart and go, okay, at least now I have that rough draft.
Yeah, you have a starting point. Yeah.
And what I'll do too is I'll go back and say, hey, what you gave me was about 80% there, and just FYI, here are my edits, how I would have done it, in turn, teaching that intern, hey, next time you give me this, just know these are some of the things that,
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I have found that it is good. It's really good at some things like that, like writing an email, or if you give it bullet points, it will construct something for you that is well written. But the learning thing is, I still don't understand, because it will, when I've had these issues with it, it will say I won't do that again. And I'm I've asked it, do I need to tell you next time not to do that, or will you remember? And it's given me different answers. Sometimes, I mean, whether you're in the same thread or a different thread or a new thread or whatever. So I have told it before, like, hey, remember that last conversation we had where you gave me the information that was incorrect, or you gave me something that I didn't, not that I didn't, something that was incorrect. Yes, Joe, I remember that. And it'll tell me, like, it'll confirm that it remembers it. And I'm like, okay, cool. You remember what I'm talking about. And I'll say, like, I can't think of an exact example, but I will tell it, don't do that again. And it'll still do it again. And I'm like, aren't you supposed to be learning from our interactions?
Well, one of the ways, I don't know if you do this, but now we're really geeking on GPT, but like one of the things that you need to do, I would recommend do rather, is you use projects. So you can create. Have you done that yet? Like you create projects in GPT.
Maybe not.
So say you're working on a specific area of your business or whatever. You create a project and then you load all the chats respective to that in that project.
Okay.
But in that project, go ahead and drop files on it. So again, back like if it were an employee for you, you would ideally go, here's your SOP.
Yeah.
Here's how we operate here. Here's the do's, don'ts, whatever. Well, when you do a project, you could throw all that, or even have it create you one, preferably, and add it as an attachment to that project, and say it'll always reference those things.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have a bunch of different threads. I think I did click like start new project or something at one point, but I didn't follow through with that. I just create a different thread, or I'll find if I have a question that, I'll find that old thread and then ask that question in that same thread. Yeah. But that's a good idea.
Yeah, it pays to start to compartmentalize its focal areas. And again, it's only as good as you educate it. And one of the ways to keep the consistency piece is to go ahead and leverage project and give it, I'm doing this like a little side project just for fun. Therapeutically, I'm doing this kind of like satirical comic strip about youth sports and like toxic parents and toxic coaches and people. It's very therapeutic. But one of the things that'll annoy you if you've done any graphic stuff in GPT is it won't keep consistency of the characters.
Yeah.
But you can use, as an example, projects. Once they create that perfect character profile, I'll take that image and I'll put it in the project files and say, hey, I've loaded that character. You will always keep that character profile. And now as I go and I create the strips and stuff, the character's right? Instead of, if I didn't do that, it would like redraw that character.
It would make a new one.
Just a little bit. Like the eyes would be different and it would be enough to annoy you. Like, hey, idiot. Like you keep changing the eyes and you'll tell it.
Right.
Keep it the same.
And it won't do it.
Yeah, and one of the things you actually got to be, it's weird, like to keep consistency. One that's the best way I've found to solve for it. But then sometimes you have to go like, under no circumstances will you change anything else but the hair color.
I have literally said things to it like that, and it will still fucking change something.
So it can be frustrating.
That's the direction this podcast should go in, Mike. That's our goal. ChatGPT, do's tips and don'ts and tips. Yeah. Featuring Dale Walls every time.
But you do jujitsu?
Yeah. I'm a 2-stripe blue belt, so I'm not real far.
Or you train here on the island? Or
I go over. I started at Conquest. It used to be called something else. I mean, maybe it's called, it was called Conquest, then it's called 5th Gen. I did it there for up until COVID, and then when COVID hit, they stopped training kind of, so I had to go over to Ronin, which is like the old Sherman's martial arts, but it's like basically just a jiu-jitsu gym now. There's no karate or anything there really. So how about you?
Been all over. I've trained with a lot of those guys on the island. That's where I started under Phil Whitlock. And then now just from convenience, once you have kids, it gets tough, especially if you're coaching. So I spent a few years training mostly in the mornings, and then COVID kind of hit and just kind of made that sporadic with me and my training partner, who's a, encyclopedia and the stuff, who's a brown belt, and he's been doing it for 20 years. So it was great to have him. I learned a lot. So I'm a purple belt now. Getting back on the mats, I've been going to the lab in Easton.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right on.
So good. So you train with Big Aaron.
Yep. Big Aaron.
So me and Big Aaron used to train, where were we at? We were over where Conquest was, and we used to do Friday night open mats.
Yeah.
And it would be like only me and, I'm talking about Aaron Lewis or Lawrence. Sorry, Lawrence.
He's like a weightlifting champion of the world.
He's freaking huge. He's lost weight, but dude, back then, so I'm skinny, right? And when we would, it would just be him and I. He literally doubles my size and weight, and we would be open mat 101. I jokingly tell people in jiu-jitsu, like Big Aaron, I call him. Like when we would train 101 and I would get mount on him, like my knees don't touch the ground.
Yeah, no, that's like
I'm 6 foot tall and
like
mount my knees aren't touching the ground. I'm like literally riding him.
Yeah.
And it's he's a good dude. He's been at it a long time.
Yeah.
So
I got all the kids in there and stuff. He's good with the kids, He's real encouraging.
All your kids are coming?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, the kids have kids class. The girls are old enough to do women's class, and they can come to adult class. And he's pretty loose about, like, he'll let my 12-year-old boy come to adult class, too. So it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man. It's like came out of nowhere for me. I saw this thing on Facebook that Conquest was like, we need like 5 men who want to lose weight or something like that. You know what I mean? And like, if you do this, it was like an eating plan and a come train this many days a week. And if you do all this, you get your time is like 3 months or something for free. Right. And
you were like, hell yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'll try that. Yeah. Joe knows me. And I went in there. I'm a pretty big dude, and I was really big then. And just got my butt whooped by these little dudes. And I was like, I have to learn that. Like, I can't live with myself if I don't learn this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
100%.
Yeah. And now it's just like my hobby, it's my way to blow off some steam and get some exercise and, kind of clear my head. Cause you can't think about much when you're getting choked out. Well, I started right before COVID, and then I got injured. So I took a break, and so I don't know. I'm bad with how long I've been doing things.
What's that, like 5 years, 6 years?
Yeah,
5
but
years.
I took a good year and a half off.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, 100%. It's for business owners or high stress people. Like you said, what I tell people, you want to unplug, like get on the mats and spar, because when someone's trying to virtually kill you, like you're not thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
Like if you want to get crap out of your head and have a mental reprieve, it'll do it for you.
Yeah. And then for a while I was doing the Muay Thai classes, and that's a similar thing. It's like you get punched in the nose and you're just like, I feel so alive.
That's more like kickboxing, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I stopped doing that. I could once in a while, but like I have, from playing guitar so much, my left arm's very easily injured. So doing jiu-jitsu and then also doing Muay Thai directly after, I noticed I kind of got to pick one. So jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
The first place I went to, had someone in my life at the time that was graduating high school and wanted to, UFC was coming up. This is 2011. UFC was kind of really popular, and they wrestled in high school, and they were like, I want to do MMA. I want to be an amateur fighter or whatever. And I was like, well, I took my GI Bill, and before I lost all the funds, I went to Chesapeake for a couple of years. He was graduating the same time I was graduating, and I was like, well, look, don't go by yourself. I'll go with you, and we'll check it out that way. Buddy system, right? We went to this place in Smyrna, and the instructor's son was 15-year-old, and I'm 31 at the time. He whipped my ass.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I'm walking around this planet knowing there's a 15-year-old that can whip my ass. And dude, I fell in love with it. My buddy quit like first month, full right. He just couldn't hack it. Because look, dude, it'll take your ego and
right away. Yeah. You see people come through there, like I'm sure you've seen it, big dudes that come in and they're going full force the whole time, and you're just like barely breathing.
Yeah.
And they're like, they come for a week and then they stop,
Yeah. That's really, if you want to kind of get comfortable being uncomfortable, like go do jujitsu and stick with it. Because you're just helpless. Like
right.
And that's why, I want it. And that's one of those things. I'm not forcing my kids to do it. I'm doing it. So they want to do it. They've dabbled in, they're really heavy in the sport. So it's not possible mostly but my goal for my kids is for all of them to at least get blue belt and then leave it. Whatever. If you love it, keep doing it. If you don't, at least, because I feel like if you're a blue belt, like in life, period, like against anyone untrained, you're going to be okay, right? Like if ever, anything ever happens, especially my daughter, I got a daughter, right? I would love for her to just be a blue belt, so that if ever she needed to protect herself against an untrained person, no problem. Trained versus trained is different, and even trained versus train that's bigger than you is way different. You know, I walk around a lightweight, and so when I'll be on the mats with blue belts that are, outweigh me, I'm going to struggle in some points, because just, it's trained versus trained, and they've got an advantage over me, which is going to make me work, and it's good. I enjoy it, but trained versus untrained, like, I mean,
it's a big difference.
Big difference.
Yeah. Cool, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We probably better wrap it up, huh?
Yeah. We're getting pretty close, man. I mean, but this has been a great conversation. I've still got like lots of different things to ask you and talk about, but I did want to ask. Sure. You've got so much going on. I definitely have a clearer picture. I liked how you talked about clarity there for a while. I definitely have more clarity as to what you have going on. But the digital architect, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what is that? And what is that?
Yeah, I mean, the thesis of that business is, everyone's dependent on technology. We're all, on the internet, email, all the things, our business systems and softwares. Where I've really found a niche, just in my career of IT, was small businesses have all this dependency on IT, but they can't afford a full-time IT person, right? And so I built in my first IT company, my enterprise IT standards, and built Corsica was an enterprise IT department. Help desk, network operations center, field service team, project team, service coordination team, as if we were in a corporate environment managing 30,000 employees, IT, except what we were that department, but we served hundreds of small, medium businesses delivering the same thing. And so, like I say, sold that company, got back into the digital architects. At the time, they were a competitor of sorts, but now I wanted to get back into the space here locally, because Corsica's not really here that much anymore. They've kind of moved and focused in our other regions, and so there's the opportunity here to kind of get back in it. So that's what we are. We are an outsourced IT department.
Okay.
We're not really the trunk slammer, like waiting for you to get a virus so we come charge you by the hour shop. It's really like, hey, I'm a business or organization that has a dependency on this stuff working, and I need the equivalent of IT department, but I can't afford it. So we bring the whole house. So we bring all the hardware stack, the software stack. So that's like, we bring the firewall, we bring the Wi-Fi, we bring the backups, we bring the antivirus and cyber tools, we bring the cybersecurity training, and for a fixed monthly fee based on how big their network is, right? So if they've got 10 computers, one office, they pay a fixed monthly fee for us to provide our IT department service to them. And now they focus on building their widgets or whatever it is they do, and we take accountability for the IT side and really wear that hat. I mean, it's kind of like what at my core and Jeannie's core and the team's core is, we take pride in, like, hey, we're accountable for this. We want to understand your business. We want to apply our foundational IT standards to your business, and then help you with that 5 to 10% that's really different, such as your line of business application, what your business actually does. So we still kind of serve as that IT advisor role, going, okay, you're an auto shop, or you're a doctor's office or insurance office or whatever. You have a dependency on that server in the closet because it's your electronic medical record system, right?
Right.
But you have no clue what it is, right? And so we take ownership of making sure it's stable and supported and maintained, and the business doesn't need to worry about, well, what's my bill going to be this month, right? It's all included. We bring our tool set, we install it, so now you're a part of our standard of IT, and then if something goes wrong, you've got someone to call. But really, our profitability comes from making sure you don't have problems. So we're
Right.
way more proactive in the things that we're doing rather than just sitting around waiting for you to. We don't want to come firefight. We don't want to come firefight that your server's down. We want to we install like ADT for IT, meaning like if you got a server or you got something like your systems are, not only do your users call us and say, hey, I can't log in, I can't print, but your systems are sending us tickets going, hey, I didn't back up the way I was supposed to, and we get a ticket for it and we'll fix it, right? It's way more proactive before you call and go, our server's down, and we go, oh yeah, and your backups haven't ran for 2 months, so now we really got a problem. So our system is designed where both the users, which is classic, are calling us with their support tickets, but proactively the systems are letting us know, hey, something's not right, or this is transitioning into a warning state or whatever. I used to tell Atlantic Broadband back in the day, like when they were down before they even knew it, right? Because I had all the customers and we were staffed 24/7. So when a part of Atlantic Broadband's network would go down, I'd see it go boop, off,
Right.
and our team would call Atlantic Broadband and go, hey, it looks like Graysonville is offline. We're like, no, it's not. Yeah, it is.
Right.
We just saw 20 businesses go off. You're down. Let us look into it, and then they'll call it. Yeah, we're down. So
It's like ChatGPT. No, we're not. Yes, we are.
so, but that's what Digital Architects does.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting, man. Very interesting.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, again, I've got lots more questions, but we probably ought to cut it off because nobody.
Ask one more, Joe. Come on. I don't know what time it is.
Now you put me on the spot. I was gonna ask. Yeah, I mean,
how would you scale Joe's business?
well, I mean that's a good question. I don't think he knows enough about my business. I've got like specific. So one. You're talking about backups, right? I've got a ton of video and photo files. And I know that a lot of people use NAS for that kind of thing. I haven't taken that step yet. I just have like 4 16 terabyte spinning hard disks and about 6 different SSDs. And that's where I am using a product or service called Backblaze, which you probably know about.
Cloud backup or something?
Yeah, it just, it's just constantly backing everything up in the background. If I move something from one, hard drive to another, it recognizes that, and it, so it's just a mirror image of everything, which is great, and I have used it, not when I lost something, but I've used it like where I was out of town and I was like, you know what, I want to do some editing or whatever, and I logged on and downloaded it to whatever SSD I had with me, and I was like, that's really cool, that worked well. But that's what a NAS is for also,
right?
But yeah, man, I mean, I'm not an IT guy in that sense, so I've done some research. I've watched a ton of YouTube videos on them, and it's just, there's so many options.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God.
Well, it's the thing in IT. And so when Through Line's got to work with IT business owners, and so I get to kind of play in that space a little bit and advising them. But one of the big things when I'm working with IT companies, because like if you're an electrician or a plumber, right, there's a standard there's a code that you install the pipes and the lines, right? And then the inspector's going to come make sure you did it to code. IT doesn't have that. It's the wild, wild west. There's a million different apps that do the same thing, a million different ways to do it. All IT people do it differently to some degree. And so it's real important if you're an IT firm to say, well, here is our standard, right? Like I can't be the expert nor expect my team to be experts in 16 different firewalls.
Right.
That's why when a customer signs on with us, the way we serve, you're going to get our firewall, right? So now all of our customers have the same firewall that our team can efficiently support that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like, do you know, people always go, do you know this software? I'm like, no, I don't. I've never heard of Datablaze. Maybe I should. I don't know. But because there's a million online backup, online sync things, right? But it really comes down back to like the things that haven't changed. So you're talking about, don't think about it. Don't let technology drive your business. Have your business select the right technologies that support it. So in your case, just as an example, what's important to you? Well, what's important to you is you don't want to lose all these files. You don't want them spinning on old HDD drives that the platters are going to go bad if they're not already. And then you don't want it to be on a NAS that's just another one of those that when that drive goes bad. So, so what you really got to think about as a business is like, well, and this is where IT partner comes in. They really understand like business continuity, right? So if, and it's small to big, right? So if you accidentally deleted a file or one of these hard drives went up, like how are you going to continue to doing your business? Well, I've got a local backup and it's got a RAID set in it. So it's right there and I can grab it. It's always backed up. What if the building burns down? Well, that device actually sends everything to the cloud so that the building burns down. I know everything's in the cloud. Well, what happens if I edit something and I didn't mean to and it got backed up? Right. Well, now you want a solution that not only protects from hardware failures and from building loss, but also keeps revision history. So that when you screw it up, because all those things are likely to happen. Right. And that's where the right IT partner comes in. That's not just trying to sell you the latest piece of technology because it exists. And I think that's one of the things I've always been in tech was like, I've never chased technology. I've chased solutions. And solutions for our customers, right? Like just because some new fancy software or gadget came out, I go, okay, but because techs would do that. They go, hey, look at this. But what are we solving for? Like, what does our customers need of that right now? And if the answer is not clear, then we're not going to waste our time with it. We're just selling something for the sake of technology.
So, I mean, I have a system. It's just probably not the optimal system, right. And if I edit something accidentally, so the softwares that I'm using to edit, they do create timeline backups. So I could technically go back. They're non-destructive edits, right? So, but like, for example, I have you mentioned the RAID system. I have some things doubled up, but not everything. And it's not, like, if you looked at them, you'd be like, what the fuck is all this? You know what I mean? Like, I can kind of understand some of it, but it's definitely not organized perfectly, And it sounds like, so that's kind of like not organizing my files, but having like backups in a very systematic, foolproof kind of way is kind of like what you do.
And when I work with customers on that, it really comes down to like the investment just needs to match your tolerance for loss, right? You know, what is your tolerance for loss? And if it's, these are projects I never look at, and if I lost them, like whatever.
All
some businesses are like that. Other ones are like, man, I cannot, no matter what, lose this. I mean, here in a business park, we got businesses that are big time government contractors on big time government projects that a real loss would be like catastrophic to the business. Right. And that means that we're going to have to spend some coin to do that right, because it's not just data loss, but it's operational loss, right? So even if the server failed, but that server has a petabyte of data on it, but it's only in the cloud. Great. That server went down and we got a copy of it in the cloud. How long do you think it's going to take to download a petabyte to set that?
I don't even know what a petabyte is. I'm assuming
it's stupid. It's stupid amount of data. But and the point is working with that customer going, well, hey, we need to actually have another local version because that server will fail someday. We need to have a local ready to go. If that means that you have no tolerance for 2 hours of downtime, right? Because if it's only in the cloud and you have that type of loss, you're going to be down for 2 days while we download it or whatever limitations are. So something like backups and business continuity. That's why I just there's all kinds of technology. It comes back to hashtag leadership, right? Like, what does your business need, and what does that look like? Otherwise, the tail's going to wag the dog, technology is going to, dictate your business.
It's interesting. This conversation is now, the podcast is, our direction with the podcast is kind of similar to the direction with like my business. Like I've kind of like, it's in a direction, or data storage and everything. The way that I have everything set up is like, it's not completely aimless, but it needs some refinement. I need to sit back and reflect on it and kind of reevaluate it, But yeah, man, I mean, you got a lot of really good information, a lot of insight. Definitely an inspiring story for sure, man. A lot of really cool stuff. Very interesting person. I hate to cut it off because we could keep going forever.
Indeed, like I say, I'm not special. I'm not sitting here saying.
Well, I hear you.
I'm just, again, that's just the biggest thing I tell anyone. I'm no different than you or anybody listening, man. It's just my choices of commitment, like what I'm committed to do and why. I screw up every day, you know. So yeah, thank you for that. But it's just like I'm not doing anything that no one else can do. And again, back to setting the example. If I'm an example for someone to say, yeah, man, I could do that. Why am I not doing that? And I want to do it and whatever. It's just it's going to suck. Just stop thinking it's going to be easy. Right. It's going to be simple. It's always simple. It's never easy. But if things aren't, whether it's your business or your personal life, if things aren't where you want them to be, well, what does what you want it to be look like, and what could you be doing to get there?
Yep.
And get started.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. Well, Dale, thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, we wave at the cameras when we sign off.
Adios.